Hello, and welcome to episode 125 on the Everyday Joy podcast. I'm your host, Joy Ravella. Now, today's episode, it really is a special one for me. We're talking about helping the needy, and especially in this episode, focusing on helping the elderly. I'm not sure what your relationship is with those in the 65 plus category. Maybe you're listening and you're saying, I'm 65 plus and I feel young and chipper, and all I'm going to say is, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you. But specifically talking about those in that age bracket, 65 plus, who are struggling. And the reality is, here in Australia, 1 in 6 Australians are aged 65 and over. And you don't need to be a super smart person to realize that that number is probably just going to increase over time. There are a lot of elderly individuals, couples who have been forgotten by society and who struggle to do basic things, and who don't want to be a burden on others and so struggle to ask for help. And it can be a really isolating thing. And so today, as we head into the Bible verse, I'd love for you to take a little moment to think about someone in your world who is elderly, who is struggling. Maybe someone at your church, maybe someone at your workplace, someone that you see on morning walks and they're just hobbling along and struggling a little bit. I'm not sure, but maybe that's something that you can just keep in your back pocket as we dive into today's Bible verse.
Don't get tired of helping others. You will be rewarded when the time is right if you don't give up. This is found in Galatians chapter 6, verse 9 of the Contemporary English Version.
I have got the amazing gig here in studio. Last time I was raving about your cherry red glasses. And now you've got these gorgeous sort of cat eye vintage
my Nana
black
Muscuri's. If anyone knows who Nana Muscuri is.
No, who was that?
Oh gosh. She was I believe she's Italian, and she had the big, like a little bit of a beehive happening, and she had the pointy glasses. And so that was my mum's look. In the 70s, we had Nana Muscuri albums.
Wow.
And she was like, everyone wanted to look like Nana Muscuri.
And now you've got the glasses look going on today. Suits your gig.
Thank you.
Hey, today we're taking a look at something I know that you personally are so passionate about, Gig. You volunteer a lot of your time here at The Light. And if you don't know, if you're listening, this podcast is run through Positive Media. We've got digital radio stations, and we've got a radio station based here in Melbourne called 89.9 The Light. I do the afternoon show on that. Gig, what's your relationship, just little segue here, with Positive Media and The Light?
Positive Media, I have been listening for 20 years. As a Christian, I wanted to find something that was wholesome and just uplifting, and just, didn't have to think about it, could just turn it on and be encouraged. So, about 20 years I've been listening. 10 years ago, I actually started calling in and getting involved with the Brekkie team. And there was a segment called Judge Kel's Parenting, and I called 2 days in a row and I got my foot in the door.
Wow, and that was it?
And that was it. So, and then I started to financially contribute, because I thought this is something, I really wanted to figure out what it was first and understand what Positive Media was, which was what was it, Light FM back then? Yeah. And started to financially get on board, and then I started to volunteer. Yeah. So I'm in the door now.
Yeah, really. Well, in the studio as well. So
if I believe in something, I will get involved 110%. So love The Light.
And I love that we're unpacking this verse together with you, especially, Gig, because you get this. Yep. Galatians 6:9. Don't get tired of helping others. You will be rewarded when the time is right if you don't give up. And today we really want to focus on this idea of not getting tired of helping others, because it's so important to do. I think that's my first impression of this verse, that fatigue can come, that if you are a serving person, or if you're the kind of person who's always extending yourself, you can get exhausted, you can run yourself dry. I've experienced that myself, and this verse is challenging because it says to me, don't exhaust yourself. This is really important. Make sure you're always getting yourself filled up, but this should always be a part of your life, helping others. What about you, Gig?
It's really important to find the balance between self-care and others' care. And it took me a good 30 years to get there. I burnt out many times. I don't regret anything I did, because I believed I impacted people in such a positive way, but I impacted myself in a negative way. So when you're looking at a situation, it's like, and I've helped some people in some really tricky times and given many, many hours and many, many dollars. And you've got to stand back and go, okay, am I okay about this? Am I dealing with this really well? Is it exhausting me? Is it taking from me? And if it's not, keep going.
Yeah.
So, and always ask God.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll come back to that point a bit later because I think it's such an important question. How do you not burn yourself out while trying to help others?
Yeah.
But before we get there, Gig, what does this verse tell you about who God is or what he values?
Okay, it's a staple for living. It really is. It's a staple for me. Almost a guideline directly from God. If we all just looked after each other and each other's needs without expecting anything in return, we're not making it a business transaction, everyone will have their needs met in this life. And this is where we go with marriage, with my husband and I. We actually look after each other's needs and put each other first. So both of us are really happy because we're not going, hang on, I've missed out on this, you didn't do this. We always consider each other first. And if you're both doing that, there's a really good equilibrium there.
Yeah. And I think equilibrium is such a great word because it is
such a hard word to say.
Equilibrium.
Equilibrium.
You know, it's my weird Kiwi Aussie accent that's messing it up for me now because a Kiwi would say
equilibrium.
Equilibrium.
Yes.
And
I can do a very good Kiwi accent.
You do better than
and
I do.
I do a very good South African accent if you want to get your credit card out. I grew up in the theatre, so I just go with the flow.
Equilibrium. Yes. I did chemistry and it was this idea that like...
You're so smart.
Well, I talked about it in a previous episode how I was pursuing the sciences, and in moments like this I do feel a little happy that I know something about equilibrium, but on a molecular level. And side note, it's been a long time since I've studied the sciences, but equilibrium doesn't mean things stay the same.
No.
It means that things are changing so often, but the net result is balance.
Yes.
Yeah. And so there are times when you give, there are times when you receive, and you shared a little bit earlier about how you receive in order to fill yourself up to give.
Yes.
But you've recently had an experience where you've decided to give in a way that's new, that's unexpected.
Yep.
Tell me a bit about that.
Growing up, Joy, I had very little to do with the elderly. Being a migrant's child, never having a grandparent or a great aunt or a great uncle, and we had a fairly new, I suppose, the house was built, so it was a fairly new area of building, so it was families, lots of families, not too much elderly. So I was terrified of the elderly because I didn't understand them.
Yeah.
Didn't understand them.
Wow.
And then slowly growing up, I'd be at the local Woolies, which was Safeway back then, and I'd see a gentleman sitting on the, with his cane and his cap. They always wore hats in the 70s. And I'd walk up and I'd notice one chap was missing a finger. And I said, "Oh, what happened to your finger?" And, of course, we got chatting. His face lit up. This little, 5-year-old was having a chat with him. My mother died on the inside. It's like, you don't ask those sort of questions. And so we had a conversation, and I got really good at approaching the elderly and having little chats. And that's something I do as an adult is I actually go out of my way now if I see them around. And a couple of days ago, I was at the laundromat in Mombok. Hey, Mombok, shout out to you. And I was doing some laundry for a client, and I noticed quite an elderly lady pull into the car park outside, and very difficultly, with a cane in each hand and a shopping basket over her elbow, balance her way. I wouldn't even call it walking. She was struggling to get to the counter of the bakery, and so I straight away went in behind her. She dropped her sticks on the floor, and I said, "Sweetheart, can I just pick up your sticks and just stand with you, while you're getting whatever you need?" So we got chatting away, and eventually I took her shopping bag, which was full of the bread for the week. She was taking it back to hubby, who's 80-odd and didn't drive, and mobility wasn't so good. I mean, her mobility was not good.
I know, I was just thinking, yeah, wow.
So got her into the car, and we're chatting away, and she said, I drove taxis for years. And I said, "Did you used to drive taxis from the Belgrave rank?" And she said, "Yes." Gorgeous German lady with the most piercing blue eyes. She was 4 foot nothing. She was absolutely divine. And this memory came back.
Wow.
I remember we lived right down the back of Belgrave, and we used to walk to Tacoma Station, which was a slog up the road. And if we were running late, we'd ring the local taxi rank. And it was, I think, a $3.50 fare. It was just, we'd get our pennies out, and they hated it because it was such a short fare, but she would always come out. And I said, I remember you. And I said, you were the loveliest. She said, yeah, I drove taxis for 30 years. So we had this beautiful connection. And I know that I've helped her for that day. And I've actually, had a bit of a conversation, because our elderly are so lonely. And we're not the sort of culture that grows up looking after our elderly. We ship them off. And the first thing my husband and I did when we came back to Melbourne was start thinking about having mum and dad with us. And that's what we did. We bought a house. We put mum and dad with us. Mum ended up going to full-time care and has now passed, but Dad's still with us, and now my sister's with us. It is so important to look after our elderly.
And I think that it is such a beautiful, practical way for us to apply this verse, because Galatians 6:9 says, don't get tired of helping others. Sometimes when we have words like others or people, we think very generally. I love how you brought some real practicality to this verse, and a great application for you listening today. Do something for the elderly.
Yeah. And people think, I don't have time to go out of my way to help the elderly and do this. It's not that. It's the little things. If you see them getting in and out of a car with shopping, if you see them trying to reach something on a shelf, if you've got an elderly neighbour, just pop a meal over. Really tiny little 5-minute things is so powerful.
I feel like Gig really spelt out today's application, so I won't repeat that, but what I will read out again is the Bible verse that we are focusing on today. Galatians 6:9, don't get tired of helping others. You will be rewarded when the time is right if you don't give up. It is a beautiful Bible verse to focus on today, and I also want to encourage you to consider partnering with CBM, because they do these operations to restore sight, and a lot of the individuals stepping forward to have these operations are the elderly. They are the vulnerable of the vulnerable in their society. They cannot work, and their eyesight limits what they can do even further. So a $33 gift goes so far in restoring their vision and restoring their dignity. And if you want to do that, the link is below. $33 results in a 12-minute operation that does so much good. Hey, I look forward to catching up again tomorrow right here on the Everyday Joy podcast.